the University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.
My name is Odilile Ayodele. I'm with the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation, and it's my pleasure to facilitate this session today. Our first speaker is Bernadette Dugas. Afterward, it'll be Frankie Bonton and Pauline Lafad. Everybody's going to get 15 minutes each, and then once we're done, we are going to go straight into the Q&A. So may I please ask Bernadette Dugas to please come to the podium.
The views of the native islanders exiled in the Seychelles. I was born on Chagossian and left at the age of 2.5 when my father was expelled to the Seychelles. We didn't feel at home in the Seychelles, and we were not fully part of the way of life or culture. These were tough years, plagued by both unemployment and very long working hours. I came to the UK in 2005, but already knew the UK quite well and felt at home. I went to the court case with Olivier Bancoul and have worked with CRG, UK Chagos, and Philippa Gregory in the past. I also work with the Seychelles group, SCS, alongside Janet Alexei. In the UK, I've tried to work with everyone who needed help, and I'm a founder members of Chagosian Voices. I have been twice to Diego Gracia, Peros Banos once, and Salomon. It was never enough days. I do not agree that the Chagos Island should go to Mauritius. I believe the judgment of the International Court is completely wrong and should be redone. We natives, islanders, we are still around, and we are not Mauritian, and I don't feel at all Mauritian. How could I feel Mauritian, born in Diego Gracia, and have lived in Seychelles and the UK? Chagosians should decide the future of the islands. We fear that Mauritius might sell or lease the islands to India or China, and we believe negotiations are already taking place. Seychelles was Chagosian were not Mauritian, and Chagosian culture and Mauritian culture are quite different. Chagosians are mainly Creole of African origin, and the Mauritian government are mainly from India, Hindu origin. The Mauritian government does not know how many Chagosians are in the Seychelles, and Seychelles government Seychelles Chagosians have always been left out from decision making and compensation. It is as if we don't exist for the Mauritian government. We did not receive compensation or land, and we never ever told about the compensation. Where does the Mauritian plan for Chagosian leave the Seychelles, Chagosian? We are never mentioned. Seychelles Chagosian are always forgotten. The court should listen to the voices of the Chagosian. We are a community and living community. It is not a community of the past. We are still here. There should be another court hearing, and it should be the Chagosian, not Mauritians, who are heard. Mauritian did not contact the community over the court case. The Mauritian boat trip to Chagos in February 2022 were an unfair trip to promote the Mauritian case. Why did they choose just 5 natives? Many natives could have gone, but didn't. The community were not consulted about it, and it didn't create a good impression for us and achieve nothing for Chagosian. If it was a choice between Mauritius and the UK, running the island, I would choose the UK if I have to. I do not trust the Mauritian government, and in the end, Chagosian must decide the sovereignty of the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dugas. I think you hit the nail on the head. You went straight, straight for the jugular. Would Mr. Bonton please come to the stage? Thank you.
So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Zondi, good afternoon. My name is Frankie Bonton, and on behalf of Chagosian Voices, I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to express our views and opinion and concern that a vast majority of Chagosian, unfortunately, has not the occasion to express themselves, because so far we have been completely ignored in all the decisions taken at the international level, whether at the UN, the ICJ, and over the years, and this has to stop. I am a second-generation Chagosian. I was born in Mauritius, and I'm currently living in the UK. My mother was born on the main island, which is Chagossian. I came to the UK in 2006, and have lived in Crowley since then, where actually the majority of Chagosian resides. And I've been supporting the communities in the UK for many years, fighting injustice that our community face, discrimination, amongst others. I have worked with Chagosian Islanders Community Association, Chagos Islanders Welfare Group, Chagos Islanders Movement, and I am a founding member of the Chagosian Voices. Chagosian Voices is a grassroots Chagosian community platform which promotes the varied voices of the Chagosian community through conference, webinars, and direct communication with official bodies and the general public. It groups together community leaders and individuals of the community from the UK, Mauritius, and the Seychelles. Chagosian Voices doesn't intend to replace any existing groups, but allows all Chagosians to express themselves through our platform. We have played a very important role in securing the amendment to the Nationality and Borders Bill, which will grant UK citizenship to all Chagosian descent. We organize regular meetings with the Home Office, the Foreign Office, MPs, peers, and ministers. We wrote numerous briefing documents, case studies, and petitions and texts, and kept the profile of the Chagosian and the citizenship problem in the press by securing a number of important articles in national and international press and media. Personally, I don't agree that the island should be handed back to Mauritius without the Chagosian being consulted. Chagosian has never been consulted at any stage, and the views of the overwhelming majority of Chagosian were never represented, either at the International Court of Justice or during the Lancaster House Agreement between the UK and the Mauritian government in 1965. That would result with Mauritius gaining its independence and the Chagosian uprooting from our homeland. This decision by the UK and Mauritian government would be the start of our people's suffering and misery over the last 5 decades. And we are still suffering. Chagosian had been used by the Mauritian government at the ICJ to get sympathy by providing an amount of their suffering for emotional engagement. We were also dismissed in the questions to the court, which was posed by and in the interest of Mauritius. And in the judgment, we were mentioned as Mauritian of Chagosian origin. As if they are trying to erase our identity. Chagosians did not exist according to the question. And that's the decision of the court, both of them, yeah? So we're talking about Mauritian of Chagosian origin, which we categorically reject. The international court should be thoroughly ashamed. The Mauritian government was also complicit along with the UK government, both of them in the exile of the Chagosian and the sale of the island in 1965. That's why I said sale. Because from the declassified document in the British archive, the word purchase, acquisition of the Chagos was used during the negotiation between Mauritius and the UK, and Mauritius received £3 million from the UK in 1965. So why they take this money if they were against? Moreover, we felt that through the Lancaster House Agreement in 1965 between the UK and the Mauritian politician, the sale of the Chagos without consulting its inhabitants violated the Chagosian right to self-determination at that time, because Chagosians were excluded from the election which led to independence and the political decision in Mauritius. Then, can someone explain to me, how could a group of Mauritian politicians represent the Chagosian people without even consulting them and exile them from their homeland? Where are the fundamental rights of these people? Are they animals? That's my question. As human beings, because, you know, even the UN, there's a body of the UN has recognized the Chagosian as indigenous people. That we have it on paper, what I'm saying. I'm not inventing anything. Moreover, Chagosian do not feel that they are Mauritian, and Chagosian feel that they're being exploited by the Mauritian government. Mauritius wants sovereignty of the island and the financial gain. And during the speech recently at the UN General Assembly, the Mauritian Prime Minister, Pravin Jugnauth, said, I quote, "As it is confirmed over the years, Mauritius is prepared to enter into a long-term lease to protect the continued operation of the military base on Diego Garcia." So the main goal of the Mauritian government is to engage negotiation with the US government to secure rent from the US Navy for the US Navy facility. I do not think there will be any resettlement for Chagosian if the island is ceded back to Mauritius. They are just taking us for another ride. The Mauritian government also, we think, would likely offer lease and licensing for access for fishing, mineral resources, and tourism in order to cash on their proposed territory. Most importantly, the question addressed to the court itself referred to the resettlement of Mauritians, not Chagosian, which we totally disagree. It was wrong to describe Chagosian as Mauritian. Their origin, as even in this documentary earlier from our friend, very good documentary, the origin dated the end of the 18th century. We know that our ancestors were brought as slaves from Africa, Madagascar, and laborers from India. Chagosian have been there for 5 or 6 generations with their own language, culture, food, music, and tradition. It is quite a remote island. They are very different, the culture, different from Mauritian culture. Recently, the Mauritian government had been describing Chagosian as Mauritian, but until now, they have been used like very disgustful term to describe Mauritian, like Ilua, for example, that they are lesser. We saw that in the documentary, all these words that have been used. They are lesser people. Chagosian have always been looked down in Mauritius when being considered as second-class citizen. We were dumped in the suburb of Port Louis, where there's high level of poverty among the marginalized Chagosian community and huge social and emotional suffering among the population, resulting in unhappiness, suicide, substantial drug substance dependencies. Chagosian have been victims of ethnic discrimination in Mauritius. And one more thing, if I had to talk about the case in 2000 from Mr. Olivier Bancoul, where the judgment of Lord Justice Laws and Justice Gibbs at the High Court in London said Chagosian are the belongers. And as belongers, Chagosian should be their own deciders of the future, not the Mauritian government. That's why we keep on saying self-determination should have been for the Chagosian, not Mauritian. You know, sometimes, for example, when we look, there's 2 governments. They are arguing that sovereignty is theirs. But actually, who suffered the most? Who been deported? Was it any Mauritian or British? No, the Chagosian people. So from now on, I think if there's any table internationally, Chagosian should be represented. They should decide where they want to, if they want to side with Mauritius, the UK, or they be self-governed. that should be their choice. Yeah? And one thing I wanted to point out, Mauritius is presenting itself as the champions of the Chagosian cause. But you know what's happening in one of its dependencies, Agalega, where my maternal grandmother, my uncle, and my stepdad was born there. You know what's happening today? What's happening? There is a memorandum of understanding signed in March 2015 between India and Mauritius. Yeah? And it said in there for the improvement of the sea and transport facilities at Agalega. But actually, what they're doing there, they're building a military facility. Yeah? What's happening today is like bis repetita. What's happened to the Chagosian before, at the end of the 1960s, is happening to the Agalean people. There are like 200 people, 300 people living there. Yeah? So now the women there are not allowed to give birth to the children on the island. They have to go to Mauritius, and there on the birth certificate, it will write Mauritian citizen. So in the near future, there will be no Agalean, no one to have a right birth claim on those islands. So what's happening now? Where is the international community? Why? They can't say anything, they're only one-sided? We are very angry with the situation because we consider like Agalean, they are like Chagosian. Even after the forced exile, there are some Chagosian, I think there are 30 families living there because some of them could not get used to their life in Mauritius. Agalega reminded us of Chagos, they went there. So Mauritius should look at itself before trying to be the champion cause of the Chagosian. Let the Chagosian decide of their future. And that's why we said Chagosian should ask for a right of self-determination, but so far no one is hearing us. We want to decide ourselves. How can the UN and others turn a blind eye? The UN must take on board the Chagosian view. Chagosian should be in all talks. Chagosian people were the only victim, as I said earlier. And still now, the subsequent generation, they are still feeling the weight of the forced exile. They are still experiencing the trauma, what's happened to their families before. Yeah? And before, in this documentary from our friend, there was one part when he said, this I quote from the ex-foreign minister, Mr. Jean-Claude Delestrac, when he said during the Lancaster House talks, when he called, it's Ramgoolam, yeah, father. They call him the father in independence. He was prime minister of the world. When he said, like handing Chagos a little detail. For him, perhaps a little detail. But for 50 years, a whole population is still suffering from this. Yeah? And how can we trust those people? No. We have to decide. It's neither Mauritius nor Britain. We have to decide the future of our island. So thank you all for giving, thank you Professor Zondi for giving us the opportunity, and I hope that this is the start, because the problem, the Chagosian, their voice been not heard in the international level, it's only government that been talking. So now it's time for the Chagosians to step up. We will talk on our behalf. We don't need anyone to talk on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bonton. It was very emotive. I think many of us across the continent can actually, how do you put it? We find salience in the argument about land and the political and spiritual importance of owning your land and having your own voice. The next speaker is Pauline Lafad.
Good afternoon, the Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. As a native of Perros Banus, I can affirm that life on the Chagos Island was easy and peaceful. We were living in a healthy family environment. There were no difficulties on the island, and we were all living in harmony by helping each other. I live in happiness and happy childhood with my parents and grandparents. We were living near the seaside where we used to play. And it was really easy to visit our family as we were all living next to each other. We live in abundance with peace and joy. When my dad fell sick, he needed medical assistance in Mauritius because there was only a nurse for health-related problems on the Chagos Island. He undergone a surgery, and after having recovered, he wanted to return back to his native land. He was then informed that same would not be possible. And from there, everything changed. It was really hard for everyone to accept this new reality. He has no alternative than to look for a work in order to be able to rent a room for us to live there in Mauritius. As we came into Mauritius with only one bag, all our family belongings stayed on the Chagos Island. For 6 months in a year, my dad would be working at the Mauritius dock, and the other 6 months he will go to fish for living. Life was not easy. There were different culture, language, and food. We added to that the trauma of not being able to return to our island, the suffering, low moral, studying without planning, trying to keep unity in the family, even if there were no hope for a better tomorrow. We, children, were the longing stock on our so-called friends at school because on our language difference, they call us Zilwa and Mozambique. At that time, it was the worst kind of insult to be treated of. We were discriminated, put aside, and insult for our differences. And as human beings, this was devastating to our morals and dignity. We have been living this way for long and were obligated to accept this reality. We have done traumatous having to adapt to this new lifestyle. Throughout the year, we have been living in this fear and pressure from the society. Our grandparents, native of the Chagos Island, were dying of hunger. Distress, stress, sadness, and of so much pressure. Youngers were easily being trapped in drug and prostitution because it was the easiest way to make money. This uprooting from our motherland has been detrimental to the future of our descendants. In 1972, when we heard that no one will be able to go back to the Chagos Island, the community had started to raise their voice in order to make everyone aware of our history and journey. We wanted to voice out our floated dignity and human value. When the last ship came from the Chagos Island to Mauritius, there was no one to receive and welcome us on the dock. We were left there, not knowing where to go, hungry and with no shelter. The Mauritian government has promised to give a house to everyone, to give animals to breeding, and to provide jobs, but they did not respect such commitment. And at that time, thanks to the social worker who pled our case with the government, the Mauritian government, those who did not have any relative in Mauritius were offered small houses that were once used to breed animals. Life was hot, really hot. Can you realize to what business we have been reduced to? Hence, Mrs. Solesia Alexis and a group of Chagosian women have started the fight against injustice. They want of Hunger Street in order for them to be heard and that the authority can intervene in ameliorating life of the Chagosian here in Mauritius. But on the contrary, police officers were allowed to use force, and Mrs. Solesia was hurt during this alternation, and several women were sent to prison, including Mrs. Lindsay Cullen, who was a politician. In front of such injustice, more people of the community were on strict order for the government to set free those who were imprisoned. The Chagosian community has decided to take into hand their destiny. As from this onward, the Mauritian government started to consider our fight and started to recognize. Unfortunately, the Chagosian community was not part of the negotiation between British and government of Mauritius. They made decisions for their own profit benefits, with including the Chagosian in the equation. Since the uprooting, no integration program has been put in place till now. We were uneducated, with no money, no saving, no land, no houses, no program for the children. At this time, education was not free. Some of us has been able to change this situation, but the majority is still striving. And all these struggles are inhuman. We won't throw all this suffering, even if we were not the ones causing them. The British government, the Mauritian government, British and US government are the ones responsible of our suffering. With the lack of integration, the same cycle is repeated and our community is not progressing. Same for the 65 families on Agaliga, who living 56 family of Chagosian who living in Agaliga, In 1914, 14,000 pounds sterling was allocated for Chagosian, the Chagosian community. But till now, nothing concrete had been put in place. There are only two projects which were suggested by the Chagos Island people groups and that have been realized are English courses and entrepreneurship courses for women. We want to be heard and respected. The Chagos Island belongs to the Chagosian people. We want the Mauritian, British, and US government to take their responsibility toward our community. We want a moral reparation for all the suffering, our lost dignity, and for this horrible fact to which we were integral. To end, let me highlight those powerful words from Nelson Mandela. He once says, "Do not look the other way. Do not hesitate. Recognize that the world is hungry for action, not word. Act with courage and vision. The Chagosian people does not want to hear word or need. It was time to take action and to repair the injustice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lafad. It would be very difficult for me to sum up the different presentations today, but I think anybody listening would hear it in their head, hear it in their heart, the anger, the frustration, and also the determination for turning things around. We're going to go to the Q&A. Before I think I'd like to hand over to Mpome because there are people online who actually have some questions.
Okay, Marie, can you please unmute yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. Vous m'entendez?
Afternoon.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Yes.
I can speak in French, please.
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Au fait, ce que je voulais dire par rapport à cette journée d'aujourd'hui, pour moi, je
What I
tiens à
wanted to say
remercier
concerning this day,
vraiment à vous remercier parce que souvent notre peuple, la communauté chagossienne, est mal connue à travers le monde.
I wanted to say thank you for the awareness that you are raising about the Chagosian people.
Et aujourd'hui, vous nous donnez la chance de pouvoir participer à cette conférence là où on se trouve à travers le monde. Moi-même, je suis en Europe aujourd'hui.
Today, you're giving us the opportunity to participate in this conference. I myself am in Europe today.
En regardant le film de tout à l'heure,
After looking at today's documentary,
je tiens à remercier vraiment toutes les personnes qui ont contribué à cela.
I'd like to thank every person who contributed toward the project.
Et en regardant cela, j'ai compris que mon peuple a été déraciné pour la sécurité.
From that documentary, I was able to gather that my people were uprooted from their roots, uprooted from their territory.
Et dommage que les deux puissances de ce monde nous mettent au milieu et mon île, qui est l'île Maurice, dont mon pays que je suis né, on se voit dans un trio. Et nous, le peuple chagossien, on est là. Du coup, on ne sait pas finalement qui va être vraiment notre sort.
It is unfortunate that these great powers in the international stage now put us in an awkward position. I myself, who is from Mauritius, along with the rest of my people, are placed right in the middle, where we are now in a crisis of belonging.
Tout à l'heure, j'entends l'ambassadeur mauricien qui énumère le nombre de soins qu'il apporte à la communauté chagossienne.
So recently, I heard all the good deeds that the commissioner announced that were done for the Chagosian people.
J'aurais aimé savoir si ces sous de l'argent vient d'où. Est-ce que c'est les contribuables de l'île Maurice qui contribuent pour aider les Chagossiennes ou c'est de l'argent qui vient aussi de l'étranger?
I would have loved to know the source of that financial investment, of that financial aid. Is it coming from the Mauritian government or is it coming from other international sources?
Car actuellement, il y a 40 millions de livres sterling qui est au gouvernement anglais et malheureusement, la majorité des natifs chagossiens meurent tous les jours, voire régulièrement, et que eux, ils n'ont rien touché jusqu'à maintenant.
Because up until today, thousands of Chagosians are dying every day and none of them have been able to benefit from this financial aid.
Je m'en excuse si ce n'est pas forcément le sujet d'aujourd'hui, mais la communauté chagossienne n'a pas vraiment des voix officielles pour qu'on puisse s'exprimer internationalement.
I'd like to apologize if that is not today's main focus, but the Chagosian people do not have official voices that is representing the people.
Ben, je tiens à vous remercier si je peux avoir ces réponses. Merci en tout cas pour ce que vous nous donnez la parole aujourd'hui.
Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to hearing the answers to my concern.
Thank you. Mpome, is there one more online question?
Are there any colleagues online who would like to ask a question? I think there was one.
Can I say something for
Yes, please.
the
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janavi. I'm a married girl and I'm not agree with theology and Mauritian government and the sovereignty should stay to UK and the late Queen Elizabeth II recognized us as a British Indian Ocean Territory and I'm proud of it. And the Chagos Archipelago belong to UK, not for Mauritius. God save the King Charles III. Thanks.
All right.
We have one more question from Pascalina. Please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pascalina, and thank you for giving me the floor. I have just one question from the Mauritian ambassador and from the CRG. I would like to know why the Mauritian government mentioned at the ICG that Chagosians are Mauritians from Chagosians origins, and why those present there don't say nothing to rectify that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. I think we're done with the online questions. Is there anybody in the room? We can take about 2 or 3 questions in the room before we hand over. Anybody have a question? Okay, please go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I have a clarification. We keep saying that there were 2,000 Chagosians who left the island. Yes, that was from 1965 onward. But those that were left before, were they not considered as Chagosian?
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Please go ahead.
Hello. First of all, I have to say that we don't have an exact number, but according to all the archive, that it's about 3,000 people had been uprooted. When we say 3,000 people, it's since the beginning, because there was only one link from Chagos, because all the provision coming from Mauritius to fill Chagos. And every time a Chagosian need to have medical treatment, he have to travel to Mauritius. And this is what the link was. But we have to count everyone. Those mainly who were born there. Even they came during the deportation or even before. And it was not their wish to come and to stay for long in Mauritius, because there was something who prohibits them to return. Everyone, every Chagosian family have a different story. I've heard about many people who had been talked to say it. Me, myself, the story of my sister who had been hurt by a will cart, have to travel to Mauritius, and others. But we have people also who were not happy to go to Mauritius. They just lost their life. And we have 2 of them were buried in Rodrigue. You see, and they had been classified, that the doctor said that they were passed away because of sadness. It's something. And I want to respond to the question of Pascalina, to say the Mauritian said in the code that it's a Mauritian, Chagosian Mauritian origin. To be frank, since 1914, Mauritius was a British colony. But no one can deny that Chagos was dependency of Mauritius. Because I'm not here to defend anyone. The most things that I want to defend is about Chagosian himself. It's clear on our birth certificate, it indicates clearly that we were born in Paros Banos, Chagosian Salomon, but dependency of Mauritius. It's like this, and it's only one place that we can find out all the records. It's in Mauritius archive, in Mauritius civil status. It should be clear on that. I cannot say personally, because we have been forced to leave Chagos. We have been put in boat to go forcibly removed, to go to Mauritius and Seychelles. It's not our wish. But we have known Mauritius. I take my own example. I've been staying 44 years in Mauritius. I'm, as all other people who can say they are denied, many of us have an identity card of Mauritius. And it's clearly identified. If Mauritius said, I might not be happy with that, because we think that it should use the word Chagosian instead of Mauritian of Chagosian origin. No, I'm not agree with that. I personally think that we need to use the term Chagosian, because we were born in Chagos, we should know as Chagosian. Thank you.
Sorry, Pascalina would like to respond to that answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe at the time, yeah, Chagos was under the dependency of Mauritius. But you should agree with me that we Chagosians, we have our own identity and culture. Instead of making us being recognized, it's like we are trying to erase our community. Chagosians who have been displaced to Seychelles, they don't have Mauritian nationality. We have our own language, so we can't say that we are Chagosians or Mauritians of Chagosians origin. Thank you very much.
Dr. Issa?
I think as we have a traduction here, I will speak in French. Ok. Je voulais vraiment remercier IPATC pour avoir organisé une telle discussion, et c'est là même que je trouve l'importance des objectifs que IPATC s'est donné.
I would like to thank the institution for organizing this conference, because it is through this conference that I'm even able to see the objectives of the institutions.
La première fois que j'avais appris de Chagos Island, là, c'était en 2012, la première fois que j'ai voyagé pour aller à Tenerife, et j'ai rencontré quelqu'un qui m'avait raconté un tel cas. Et après, quand je suis arrivée en Allemagne, j'en parlais avec un ami camerounais, et c'est lui qui m'a parlé la première fois de l'île de Chagos. Et pour moi, c'était à peu près... Excuse-moi, oui.
It's okay. So the first time that I heard of the Chagosians, I had gone there and met someone in 2012 who shared their story with me. I went back to Germany and I started sharing it with others.
Et c'est là que j'ai senti que vraiment on a des problèmes, mais j'avais pas eu la dimension comme aujourd'hui comme ils sont en train de nous rapporter ça, vraiment, ça me fait de la peine de savoir que c'est un problème très, très pertinent et qui passe à l'écart de la communauté internationale, quoi.
So it is from there that I saw the gravity of the situation, but I didn't see it as intense as I have been given the opportunity to hear about it today. And it's unfortunate that such a situation is still pertinent in the international community.
Et en passant, je voudrais vraiment féliciter le frère qui vient de nous présenter le film. Donc, vraiment chapeau au régisseur.
This being said, I would like to give my thanks and congratulations to the gentleman who showcased the documentary.
Et je pense que ce film-là, vous devez, en tant que communauté, ou bien nous devons tous ceux qui ont les possibilités, essayer encore d'amener ça au niveau international, que ce soit au niveau de l'ONU, au niveau de l'Union africaine, que vous-même vous présentez vos propres problèmes. Donc je parle des Chagosiens, mais nous allons aussi aider, mais vous êtes les premiers concernés, parce que ce matin, moi, quand j'avais eu le discours de son Excellence, l'ambassadeur, franchement, je ne voyais pas le problème à une telle dimension. Et maintenant, vraiment, avec tout ce que je viens d'entendre là, je crois que c'est vraiment un problème sérieux qui mérite bien d'être traité attentivement. Donc, je ne vais pas monopoliser la parole. Merci encore pour IPATC, à tous les organisateurs et particulièrement au professeur Zondi d'avoir créé un tel contexte où on pouvait s'échanger et c'est ça qu'on appelle thought and conversation. Merci.
So just to summarize what Madame said, so basically this is a call to actually begin to share and distribute the knowledge of this documentary on an international level, to the UN, to the AU, not just the Chagosian community, but also each and every single one of us. And in this being said, I'd like to thank the institution for actually realizing the very name that it is given to trigger Pan-African thoughts and conversations, which is exactly what has been done today.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, because of time, I have... Okay, just 5 minutes because I have to hand over. Could you turn on your mic, please?
To add what just Pascalina just said, you know, we could say, like, for example, the Seychelles were administered from Mauritius, which was a British colony. So in 1903, when the British detached the Seychelles from Mauritius to create another colony, we could say that all the Seychelles people are from Mauritian origin then. Is it fair to call that? That's my point about the Chagosians themselves, yeah? So we were a colony of a colony. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
I'd like to call... Okay. I'd like to call Dr. Shangase, my colleague from the Institute, to take over the next session. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions from this first session, and hopefully we can take it on to dinner time. Okay, come on.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.